This is just the beginning.
Hello and welcome to an Axios virtual event. I'm Mike Allen, a co-founder of Axios, coming to you from my living room, dining room, everything room in Arlington, Virginia, right across the bridge from Georgetown. Today, we're going to be talking about the pandemic pivot and small business recovery. And we're going to be diving deep into Wisconsin, which is a manufacturing-heavy state. It's, of course, a politically pivotal state. And I can tell you from personal experience, it has a lot of great bars, restaurants, and wineries. So they're experiencing the full experience of shutdown and recovery. And Axios CEO Jim Vandehei is from Oshkosh. So soft spot for Wisconsin. We'd like to thank Facebook for making these important conversations possible today. And we'd like to welcome all of you who are watching on Axios.com, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on all the ships at sea, all the different ways that you're watching this event. Thank you for coming in. You can follow along at hashtag Axios Events, and we'd love for you to follow us on Twitter at Axios. Easy enough. We can have a conversation every day. Our newsletters, signup.axios.com, signup.axios.com. So thank Facebook, and we're very excited to plunge into a topic that is hitting home for so many Americans right now. Our first guest has been right on the front lines, right in the middle of this, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. He's chairman of the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. And you go to their website, and their hashtag is Cut Red Tape. So that tells you a little bit where he's coming from. Chairman Johnson lived the dream. He was a business person. He was a very successful manufacturer in Wisconsin, and he went straight to the Senate. He was elected to public life right from business, didn't mess around with mayor or congressman or all these other things. Has always had an entrepreneurial streak. Young Ron Johnson delivered papers, shoveled snow, caddied, worked at the Walgreens grill where he started washing dishes and worked up to fry cook. So knows business. Senator Chairman Johnson, welcome to Axios.
Hello, Mike. How you doing? Hope you're staying healthy.
Great. Thank you, Senator, and to you and yours. And I took a look at the map for cases for Wisconsin. You were doing good, and now you're doing this. How worried are you about reopening recovery in Wisconsin?
Actually, we're trying to do this. Now, I'm concerned. The last 4 or 5 days, we've had another uptick. We're almost reaching, in a couple times, almost a record number of cases per day. I've always been concerned about the approach we've taken on this. I think pretty early on, and I got a fair amount of criticism for pointing out that we do lose 36,000 people a day or a year on the highway, but we don't shut our highways down. I think it's actually a pretty apt analogy. So much of our economy is vital. Every business, every organization is essential to somebody. And so what we should have done is we should have focused on the non-essential businesses that really represented a significant risk for out-of-control spread. We should have focused on them, shut them down,
for example,
and then also focus financial support for them as well. And so what ended up happening, we had more generalized shutdowns. People got sick of it. And so when the shutdowns were lifted, people are going about their daily activity because they survived the shutdowns. And now they're going into, for example, bars that are crowded where people are shouting loudly or speaking loudly. They aerosolize the COVID. I think that's really what's happening. We saw a report today that maybe the air conditioning down south is causing this too. So we need to keep updating our information, and I continue to be concerned about this.
Now, Senator, something that you have talked a lot about is how the federal government can help recapitalize businesses. Tell us what you think the government should be doing, because as a manufacturer, I know you were always suspicious when somebody said, I'm from Washington and I'm here to help.
Well, I think the first assumption we all made is COVID is nobody's fault. It's basically an act of God. And so the businesses that are suffering, the people that work for those businesses that are suffering, it's not their fault. And so what we try to do in our financial support, which is so far total $2.9 trillion, is be as inclusive as possible. And initially with a program, for example, PPP, that was really intended to keep employees tied to their employer. and it would have worked great if this thing would have been an 8-week event. Actually, would have worked perfect. Flood money, get that into businesses. They could flood that and support their employees. The problem is this is continuing to go on. Now, many businesses are never shut down. They're actually doing quite well. A company like Amazon's doing great. So many businesses in our economy are doing well, but there are a lot of businesses that are going to be shut down way beyond the 8-week time period. And for those businesses, and I'm really concerned about smaller businesses at the lower end of the economic spectrum, people who never took out a loan, they didn't have a relationship to the bank, they were the last people in line to get PPP loans, their capital's been wiped out. They may already be out of business. And so I think we really need to be taking a look at some program or programs or some method to potentially restore capital to viable businesses that can reopen. But those same businesses are going to have some kind of game plan to mothball themselves, to minimize their spend so that once the market actually allows them to open up, they'll be able to. But we're going to have to make sure that they have the financial resources to restore the capital so they can reopen up. Again, there's nothing easy about it. It's incredibly complex, but it all starts with we want to be as inclusive as possible and provide financial support to employees and to businesses so businesses can rehire and reignite our economy.
Now, Senator Johnson, you had one particular innovative idea that I found very exciting. You outlined this in a piece in the Wall Street Journal, and you were ambitious. Your headline was How to Fix the PPP, taking on a lot. But your specific idea was $10,000 per employee incentives, and there was a big catch. Tell us what you want the employers to do.
Sure. PPP on average probably provided a grant of around $11,000 per employee. So if we're going to provide these grants, restore capital, what I would say in exchange for the grant, a business that wants to reopen would then establish a new ownership structure, something like an employee stock ownership plan. I actually worked at one, it's called National School Studios, now LifeTouch. They do the photographs for schools. And that business was established as an ESOP once the owners grew old enough. And it's a great form of ownership. Every employee participates. They participate in the earnings of the company, generally set up as a retirement type of plan. It's a really good ownership structure for capitalist society. I think it would also help alleviate the inequality gap as well. So, that's the type of innovative thinking I hope my colleagues will embrace as we move forward in pretty uncertain times.
Now, Senator Johnson, as Chairman Johnson, you've been doing a lot of oversight on the federal government's pandemic preparedness. Like, how would you grade the government, and what is the number one thing that you think needs to be done to get us ready for the next pandemic? And all the research shows it's coming.
Well, across the board, prior to the pandemic, and this was prior administrations, Congress, the administration, agencies, a pretty low grade because we weren't prepared. In terms of once we got in the pandemic, I give people involved in this very high marks. They're working 24/7, doing an almost impossible task. The demand for some of these PPE supplies are outstripping supply by 2 and 3 times. So it's a pretty difficult thing to manage. This is a new coronavirus. We didn't have a test. We tried to develop one very quickly. Now we're testing, I think, at the rate of 600,000 people per day. So I guess coming from a manufacturing background, I realize you just don't snap a finger. This isn't Star Trek, where you speak in the computer, 300 million tests. This actually takes some time. It's way more complex than that. So in terms of actually grappling with this, I give the people in the agencies pretty high marks. Now, at the same time, elected officials, I'm not overly critical because whether it's the president, whether it's governors, whether it's local officials, they've had to make really tough decisions with imperfect information. Again, in hindsight, I think we overreacted. I think we closed too much of our economy down. And I don't think we focused enough on what we needed to do. Isolate the sick, quarantine them, protect the vulnerable. We didn't do that in New York. We didn't protect vulnerable in for example, nursing homes. And then really allow the rest of us to carry on with our lives as carefully as possible. We're all germaphobes now. And I think appropriately so. Nobody wants to get COVID-19. But I think when all said and done, we'll take a look at a country like Sweden, who basically adopted that approach. Their deaths as a percentage of their population are no higher than, let's say, the UK or Spain and Italy. we don't know exactly where the metrics are all going to fall out on here, but I think we're going to have to learn to live with COVID-19. I mean, I hope we get a miracle drug that cures it or a vaccine that prevents its spread. We can't count on that, but we have to recognize the human toll of the economic devastation of these widespread shutdowns. So we just have to be smarter about this and always be looking at the science in terms of what's guiding our actions.
Senator Johnson, my last question for you. As you know, I have good Oshkosh sources. They might actually be named John and Joan. And I heard that your daughters are also business people. They've opened a beautiful business in downtown Oshkosh, a great historic building that I have seen. It's known as the Eagles Club if you've lived in Oshkosh for a long time, but it's now reopened as the Howard, including a boutique bowling alley. Who knew there was a fancy bowling alley in Oshkosh? Senator Johnson, what was the number one piece of business advice that you gave to your own daughters as they became entrepreneurs there in Oshkosh?
Well, the same piece of advice I give to everybody I work with, and it's your family comes first. You need to really concentrate on that, and don't let your work overwhelm you where you can't concentrate on the first priority of life, which is family first. Beyond that, my kids are incredibly talented. I mean, they did a great job. Their renovation made Architectural Digest. It's really a very unique place, and it's named after their grandfather, who was a pretty darn good entrepreneur himself. So it's a great project. Unfortunately, it's been completely shut down by COVID as well. It's being mothballed so they can reopen. It's almost a gift to the community. This is a place where generations have held weddings, and so many of the comments come in just really very thankful that my daughters were able to take this on so we could reestablish this as just a premier venue for people to gather and celebrate things like weddings and anniversaries.
Senator Johnson, thank you for joining this Axios virtual event. And in happier times for Wisconsin and for our country, I will join you at the Howard.
I'd enjoy that. Have a good day.
Thank you, Senator Johnson, for joining us. We'd like to thank Facebook for making these fascinating conversations possible. And now we have a video from Facebook.
This is Kim Hart coming to you live from Falls Church, Virginia. Now I'd like to invite in Amanda Stefl, who's owner and winemaker at Timberhill Winery in Milton, Wisconsin. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Kim. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. So you opened Timberhill Winery about 5 years ago. You're not far from Madison and about an hour, a little less than an hour outside of Milwaukee. Tell us a little bit about your winery and how you got started.
I got started opening a winery after I went to school for microbiology and found out that winemaking could be a career path with that. And I just started making wine at home and really fell in love with the process and decided to start my own winery from there. And the Milton area is where my family is from originally. So I was able to start the business here in southern Wisconsin with the help of some family.
And when did you actually open your doors to customers?
We opened our doors October 2016.
Okay. And you're in an industry that is one of the most vulnerable to the pandemic, given you're in food service, and wine tasting is a very in-person industry, not used to doing remotely. So tell me a little bit about how the pandemic has changed how you operate and impacted Timberhill.
Sure. So before the pandemic, we definitely had the most sales from traffic to our retail location, coming either for events or for wine tasting and purchases from the actual winery. But with the pandemic, we have taken a big shift to online, hosting our events online, and increasing the capabilities of our website to improve our online sales.
Tell me a little bit more about how you hosted events online. What platforms did you use, and what kind of events did you start to pivot to?
Yep. So before the pandemic, we had an amazing Facebook audience. We had an engaged group of people, and we were able to harness that community and host almost all of our events that we typically would have been hosting at the winery. We hosted using Facebook Live. And it was a great way to just stay in contact and keep our customers engaged.
And I see from your website, you even had yoga classes, you had concerts. What kind of reaction did you get from your customers? And did it tell you something about loyalty from your customer base that you weren't quite sure was there in the past?
Well, I did know that we had a good loyal following, but this definitely proved it. I would say it was amazing. People were just so thankful to have activities to do that were somewhat similar to the activities that they did before the pandemic. And so having that ability to still have yoga and music, we even have a biweekly fundraiser that we do for different nonprofit organizations. And we were still able to host that every other week and encourage people to make donations or do what they could to the nonprofits as well.
Wow. And you're able to be open now, right? According to your county restrictions, you're able to be open at 50% capacity?
Yep. So we have been reopened now for a month. When we first opened back up, it was a 25% capacity, and now we're at a 50% capacity. And that's the main limitation we have. We are wearing masks and taking a lot of extra precautions right now to make sure everyone who visits us is safe, and then also our staff as well.
And you also implemented an online reservation system for the first time as well to help people feel more comfortable with coming in and knowing when it was crowded or that they would be in a socially distanced atmosphere. Is that right?
Exactly. I think that a lot of people wanted to know whether or not they would be able to come and what services would be provided. So by implementing a reservation system for the first time, we were able to help give people a little more assurance on what exactly their visit would entail.
Tell us a little bit about the business impact. How much of a hit to your bottom line have you experienced since the pandemic began?
Overall, we have pretty much only seen a decrease in our growth. Before the pandemic, we had an amazing growth rate. And even through the pandemic and being partially shut down, we still saw an increase in sales compared to 2019. And I really think that is because we were able to stay engaged and active with our community.
And I know that there are concerns across the country right now as we see spikes in cases and worries that restrictions will have to be tightened again. And we're seeing that happen in a number of states in the southern part of the country. What are your concerns about that? Are you worried about that happening? And what are your plans to prepare in case that is in the future?
We are continuing to work on our website and different platforms on generating more online revenue and ways to engage with people more online. For example, we are creating our taste at home kits that we're just releasing so that if people, even if they're locally, they don't feel comfortable coming in and doing a tasting, or if they're in Virginia, they can still try some of our wine by ordering a taste at home kit. And so we're doing things like that, trying to come up with new ways to still stay engaged with people and reach them in a more virtual way.
Were you also able to participate in the Paycheck Protection Program?
Yes, we did receive a Paycheck Protection loan.
And how helpful did you find that to be?
I think overall it was a help, and hopefully that will carry us through with our employees. We have one full-time employee and then plenty of part-time staff. And thankfully, we did not have to lay anyone off. We were able to keep everyone who wanted to work at the time working. So that was a big thing.
And I know that you're doing fundraisers for nonprofits. You're in touch with other small businesses. When you look across the landscape, if there were things that Washington or even the state of Wisconsin could do to better support small businesses and to help them weather this very long storm, as we're finding, what would it be?
I think communicating is important with resources on how we can be adapting to these situations. So that communication and guidelines is important for us, knowing what we need to be doing to keep everyone protected, I think is important.
Have you found that your customers need a lot more communication as well right now?
Yeah, so right now, people just have a lot of questions with everything up in the air. Staying transparent and being available for people to send Facebook messages and emails with all their questions, and just making sure our social platform has all the necessary information out there too. So people, when they have questions, it's either addressed on our website or on our social media channels, or we're available to answer questions as soon as possible.
How often are you updating your social media channels to keep them informed and stay connected?
We are very active on our Facebook page, so that's definitely one of the ways that you can find the up-to-date information for our business. And we post usually a couple times a day with different events or things that are happening.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Amanda, and best of luck to you as we continue to get through this storm together.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you. After another quick video from Facebook, we'll be back with an interview with Camille Carter, who is the president of the Madison Black Chamber of Commerce.
People everywhere should have an equal chance to connect with what matters, to share a new idea, to start or grow a business. It doesn't matter who they are, where they live, or what they believe. The way we see it, opportunity is for everyone. The chance to create a movement, to find or build a community, or to learn something new. This belief is why we look to help people boost their possibilities with skills that will help them succeed in a world that's busy changing every day. Tools designed to help keep their businesses humming and their communities strong. And knowledge that will help them put the best face on their business or idea. After all, we believe in supporting people everywhere who have the ambition to turn ideas into something bigger, better, and greater.
Welcome back. Our next guest is Camille Carter. She's the president of the Madison Black Chamber of Commerce, joining us from Madison, Wisconsin. Hi, Camille.
Hi there, Kim. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here. So to kick us off, could you tell us a little bit about the Black Chamber of Commerce in Madison? How many businesses do you represent?
Absolutely. So our organization has been around since 2013, and we represent over 350 Black-owned businesses and entrepreneurs across the county.
And are they typically family-owned businesses or single people running, or solopreneurs, so to speak?
Sure. We have a variety of entrepreneurs. We do have brick and mortar businesses, but a great lion's share or percentage of our business owners are owner operated. So they're sole proprietors or gigpreneurs, but we do have a great mixture.
And I got some data here from McKinsey, actually, from an analysis they did focusing on Wisconsin small business and what the impact from the pandemic could be. Their analysis found that up to 34% of employer small businesses could close permanently just from the first 4 months of the pandemic, so through July. What have you seen in terms of closures in the small businesses that you work with?
So we are certainly familiar with the McKinsey reports and the statistics. I think that we are really in alignment with those statistics and percentages. What we are seeing is that business owners are, instead of completely closing the doors, they are working on new business plans or brand new initiatives and just rebooting and starting from scratch. But we do have a number of businesses that have completely shut their doors and have decided not to go forward.
And have decided not to even try to reopen?
That is correct. That is correct. You know, the road to entrepreneurship is, and I have to say, it's a very lonely road. And when you really do put your heart and sweat equity into building a business, it's very difficult to be shut down despite all of your hard efforts. And sometimes the thought of rebuilding and going through that process again can be daunting for many others. So we have spoken with many entrepreneurs that have decided to go and try and find employment to stabilize. The pandemic has been very detrimental with business owners. You know, their business expenses do not go away during these times, and so we found a great deal of very demotivated entrepreneurs.
I can understand that. And were any of the business owners that you work with able to take advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program?
Absolutely. There was a good percentage of businesses that did qualify for the payroll protection program, and they were very excited that they were able to secure those funds. It really did allow them not only to take care of their business and to take care of their own income for their personal livelihood, but also to extend that payroll to their employees, of which they felt very accountable to those families and to their employees. So that was a great help for those businesses that were able to take advantage of that offering. The flip side of that, however, is that many businesses were not able to qualify. So while you can hear great relief in one area of our business community, you still continue to hear, or the chamber continued to hear, a lot of dismay because many businesses did not qualify.
What were the biggest barriers to qualifying? Was it the application process?
Some of that was the application process. Initially, as you know, we're well aware of, that program opened and closed pretty quickly for a lot of our businesses. And then when it did reopen and many businesses were able to reapply, we found that there was a great deal of denial of the application due to either low or limited financials that prohibited just being accepted into that program, or not really having strong, solid relationships with their banks. So there was a couple of different reasons as to why businesses did not qualify for that, but it was primarily financial reasons.
If you're thinking about it and talking with other business owners in Madison, if there was something that Congress could do to help more, or even at the state level to help more, what would it be?
So there are many businesses that are needing, obviously during this time, we still are in uncertainty, and businesses are, despite what the future may look like, they're really wanting to rebuild. So we're really needing support from our legislature in providing low barrier opportunities for funding and financing of new business ventures. We are going to need a great deal of supportive services for technology and for investments into new tools for businesses to be successful going forward. So we're really still needing a great deal of financial support. And particularly now with business owners, some of their credit has even been damaged more during these times of economic peril. And therefore, their credit has suffered. And so we're really needing to work in alignment with our legislatures and also our financial institutions to find additional pathways and ways in which we can fund business to jump the commerce.
And Madison has seen its fair share of protests over the past few weeks since the tragic death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. What kind of impact on the Black business community has that had?
It certainly, this is a time for awakening on every level. So what we're finding as a chamber is that, we're needing to depend on one another and become engaged. Our youth and our young population wants a better future for themselves. And so we are really finding ways to embrace the protest, to embrace new changes that will help us to succeed economically. And we're just finding that we're coming together in ways that we never could have imagined before. So it's getting us out of our silos and it's forcing us to talk to one another. And that is a good thing.
And Madison is also a very young town. You have a large school there that is planning to reopen in the fall, the University of Wisconsin. What has surprised you about the young population there and their engagement with the community of businesses that you work with?
They want to be engaged. They want to do the work. They're not afraid to do the work and they're not afraid to volunteer. So right now, we really do have an abundance of young, engaged people that are willing to stand up and really be a part of the solution. So now our organization and other organizations like mine are really embracing that we have an influx of young talent that we can leverage to build a better future economically, socially, civically, across the board. So we're really inspired about that. And it has come as a result of the protests.
Have you been surprised by the level of commitment to Black-owned businesses and support for them?
When you say surprised, Madison is a great community. It's a great community of very kind, hardworking individuals. And so the willingness to be a part of the solution is not uncommon to Wisconsin here. What I am extremely proud of is that organizationally through these challenges, you find, at multiple levels within government, city, county, and state, really coming together and sharing resources and really wanting to invest in the solution more than ever before. And so that is very inspiring to be able to work and to have that level of leverage such that we can advocate and just do the work that we each need to do.
That makes sense. And what is your kind of roadmap for the next few months in helping businesses continue to navigate the pandemic, especially if restrictions get tightened again, if cases start to spike in Wisconsin?
Well, the positive thing is that, we are in a new habit of conforming. We have, like other businesses, the chamber is a business and we have business operations in which we've had to adapt as well and pivot. So we will continue to extend and expand our programming virtually and leverage the resources that we are garnering and learning as we grow as a business across our entrepreneurs and sharing those leverages to just evolve into a business of tomorrow and to provide the programming that will strengthen the skill sets from within the business and the infrastructure within the business to allow them to prepare themselves for, the unforeseen.
Thank you so much, Camille. Best of luck to you and the business owners that you work with. I know it's been a long road and we have a long road ahead of us still, but I wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Kim, for your time today.
Thanks for joining us.
Stay safe.
Thank you all for joining us today for another virtual conversation that we hope has made you smarter faster. If you liked this conversation and are interested in signing up for more Axios content, you can find how to sign up for any number of our newsletters at signup.axios.com. We also have 2 new podcasts that are recently launched in the past couple of weeks, Axios Today in the morning and Axios Recap in the afternoon. Both 10 minutes will get you caught up on everything you need to know on what's happening in the day. Thank you again to Facebook for sponsoring the event, and to Mike Allen. And hope you all have a great afternoon and stay safe.